right, guys, we're at it again. Another quick review video. We've got Darren with me, and we're going to go over the balanced data slate that just came out in September. So we'll just jump right into it. Keep it quick, keep it simple. Devastating wounds. A little bit of a hurt against Custodes in a way because it doesn't trigger our mortal wounds anymore. So devastating wounds is, anything on an anti or a 6 on weapons that you roll to wound. They get converted into mortals. Super important for Eldari when they just want to wipe units out. But now they're not mortal wounds. So I don't know, Darren, what do you think?
It's going to be, for me, it's going to be entirely dependent on how people now change their lists, right?
Yeah.
Because what it means is that a squad of Wraith Guard is no longer like super scary shooting at a squad of 20 infantry guys, because it's like, okay, well, you got 10 shots, you can kill 10 dudes. You're going to kill them really dead.
Right? Yeah. It's like the Wraith Knight puts something into it, triggers it on a 6. Instead of wiping out a squad of whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he's going to really kill one unit or one model.
I think this is a great change. Like my very first game against Eldar in this edition was against Jake, and overwatches with the Wraith Knight, sticks the 6 in, and just like, oh, I get 2d6 mortals. Here's 12 mortal wounds. Goodbye, squad that just landed. It's like, oh, that seems really dumb. Right?
Yeah.
So,
well, we were at that RTT, and like, I think Chris found that out the hard way. His Bloodthirster got overwatched, and of course, Jake, who could spike 6s, boom, 3 6s on Overwatch, boom, dead Bloodthirster, right? So,
he's been waiting to win one for a long time. So it,
he
won that one.
Oh yeah, he did. So, so no more mortal wounds. So, big change. We'll see how that affects the meta. And then I'll let you. Next one up is modifying stratagem CP cost.
Yeah. Okay. So rules that modify the CP cost of a stratagem when you target a particular unit can only do so for a stratagem that targets multiple units if every unit you target has the same ability to modify the CP of that stratagem. So this is a bit of a change because if I'm recalling correctly, their original ruling on this was if your stratagem said 1 or more targets, then you could use it for 0 CP, but you had to basically use it on your own unit, and you didn't get to the or more rider on it, right? But now they've just said, you know what, you can only use the strat that targets multiple units at all if everything you're targeting has the ability to modify. So that's interesting. And then rules that modify CP cost of a stratagem that do not specify the name can only be used to affect the cost of battle tactics stratagems. And then it lists some abilities that are exempt from that caveat. I think a whole lot of Vect just left.
I think the Calidus just went down in importance. I mean, she's great for scoring secondaries, but her Vect has definitely been nuked.
If I were an Imperial player right now, like if I was running her in my sisters, I kind of don't mind. Like everyone's Vect got nerfed, but she got cheaper, and she's still amazing at doing all of your secondaries. So it's sort of like, well, she took the same hit that everyone else took, but my like the GSC Vect enhancement still costs the same amount of points, right? Like I don't think anybody else who has Vect went down. So
and I think the big thing there with the Vect is with the change to its battle tactics. I think the only 2 core, or the 2 important ones that are core, are CP reroll and go to ground. So you can Vect them, right? So those are pretty important stratagems to Vect.
It's gonna be entirely index dependent on whether or not you still care about Vect. So I mean, if you're one of the top armies, you probably still care because it meant you had 5 or 6 really good stratagems. So you're right? Like I don't know which ones the battle tactic strats are for Custodes, but for GSC, you know, my +1, I believe it's my +1 ballistic skill, +1 AP is a battle tactic, and I believe it's my +1 to wound is a battle tactic. So the +1 ballistic skill is well worth vecting, but the 3-inch deep strike, I believe, is the strategic ploy.
Yeah, so you can't vect it now anyway.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, we the two main ones for us that were battle were the fight first, which is no longer we'll see that it's no longer battle tactic because they don't want you to be able to use the free captain ability on it. So, but the -1 damage is definitely vectable still. So, and then what's that last one? Stratagems that can be used more than once per turn or per phase per turn.
Yeah.
What does that say there?
Yeah, rules that allow you to use a stratagem even if another unit has been targeted by that stratagem this phase or turn, but do not specify the name of the stratagem. Again, can only be used on battle tactics stratagems. So I can't now pick up 3 units off the table as a Gene Stealer Cult player. Right. I can't deep strike. I can't double bomb you as a Gene Stealer Cult player.
Interesting.
I believe I'll actually double check my strats, but I'm pretty sure that one's a strategic ploy.
Yeah, but I mean, reining that in, I think just from every army's perspective that has that ability, that's a pretty good one. And the big thing too about this is, you know, for instance, like Custodes, Venatari now are starting to look a little bit more spicy. They get to rapid ingress for free, and then you can't vect that. So that's also interesting. So, but okay.
It is. So, it is indeed. My 3-inch deep strike is indeed a strategic ploy. So, you know, where you're all safe from mini units coming in 3 inches away.
Yeah, GSC definitely took a knock. I think Custodes, GSC, Eldari, but I mean the Eldari look like they're going to be fine with it, and they're just going to pivot.
Yeah, the Eldar still got balanced by the Elf balance team, so they did sort of like the minimum they could get away with, but they didn't buff anything this time. So we didn't get the Dark Eldar thing where they're like, oh well, let's drop the points on the things that people aren't using. It's like, no, please don't do that.
Exactly. Actually, yeah, like War Walkers, which you don't really see in a lot of lists, they actually went up, which was fantastic. So, but I think they just looked at anything that had like a lance in it, you know, and raised the price. But so on the Overwatch, so yeah, so they mainly just added a couple of some wording in here. So it's if the enemy unit is visible to your unit, so
oh, thank God.
Yeah, and also cannot target a Titanic unit with this stratagem. So that Wraith Knight, all of Knights other than the babies, cannot now fire Overwatch. So that's pretty big. I mean, because there was what I don't remember what Knight Daniel was using, but it's got that flamer that's like
the
18 inches. The Valiant, right? Like 18-inch flamer or something that's like AP 2 damage or 3 damage or something crazy. Like, So now you can't just park one of these these Knights in the middle of the board and just be like, okay, like you know, now you can't move around it. And then on top of that, these Wraith Knights now they can't sit back and you know, pick you off. So
for this and another reason we'll get to shortly, but I love that you now can't indirect fire Overwatch because one, it's obnoxious, but two, Night Spinners exist, and played Jeremy at the RTT, and I rapid ingress some aberrants, and he's like, oh, I'll just hit you with this Night Spinner, and oh, look at that, you can't advance and your movement's busted. And
I thought their ability only kicked off in the shooting phase though.
It might, I don't know.
But yeah, that's one thing that's good though.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, anything that minuses your movement, like, you know,
Yeah.
the barbs from NIDS or any of that stuff. I mean, the thing about Eldar though is that they have these rules that all the armies have. Every rule that they have exists in another army pretty much, but they just have the better version of it. And and yeah, it's that's what made them so oppressive. But
Anyways,
all right,
Overwatch.
and then yeah,
In,
Overwatch. I mean, you have to be able to be seen. So.
yeah, Insane Bravery. We're making Battle Shock kind of mean something again here.
Yeah.
Because we changed a lot. We changed the
Yep.
when. You now have to do it before you take the Battle Shock test.
Yep.
The target obviously had to change because it could no longer be someone who just failed a Battle Shock test.
Yep.
It is now one that has to take one. The effect, you automatically pass the test, and just like it was in the previous edition, you cannot use the stratagem more than once per battle.
Once per battle. Oh, nice.
Yes. So
that's spicy.
Yeah, I haven't had Battle Shock come up a ton as something that's impacted games, and honestly, the old version of this stratagem was a big part of that, because if you're an army that's lucky enough to have CP
extra
generation,
CP.
Right? You just always had it. I was never happy spending it.
Yeah.
But spending it was almost always either got me points or denied my opponent points or did something useful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think this is actually
nuts,
and I think this is a big help to the NIDS, because when they kick off their Shadow of the Warp, right, and now every unit in your army has to do a Battle Shock test. Now, you know, that actually, could you not? You know what? You couldn't use this on that. Oh no, you could, because it's in the command phase. So now
your command phase.
Yeah. So if they did it in your command phase, at least the stratagem now you could say, okay, well, I need this unit. You don't have to. Before you could roll, fail it, and then just do the stratagem. But now you have to be like, no, I'm just gonna make sure that this doesn't fail. Right.
There's an edge case used for the NIDS now, where if your opponent's standing on 3 objectives, but only 1 unit each, you pop it and you go, okay, maybe you fail 2 out of the 3 on 7s, and I'm stealing, like I'm taking 5 points from you. Right?
Yeah. I played NIDS. It happened to me. I was standing on 2 objectives, and I failed a Battle Shock test with, I think it was a pair of Alaris Terminators, and
it's not the guy who once per battle just says, I don't feel like being Battle Shocked. Then
no, it was 2 Alaris Terminators. I couldn't roll apparently a 6 or higher on 2 dice, and then I lost 5 points primary. So it's just, so it's interesting that way.
And a very large change.
Yes. So this is also big, just for everybody playing the game. If you've been playing against Knights, against Eldar, any of those guys, it's basically visibility and ruins. So in 10th, there's a big rule change where if you towed into terrain, you couldn't see out of it, right? Unless you saw along the edge.
It was a reverse, basically.
Yeah, it was completely reverse.
Towing in meant that you could be seen, but you could not see.
Exactly. So now they've given that to Knights, but there's no towering, which allowed them to see basically the entire board is gone. So that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, I think Tacoma and their other large events that I know, but like at least part of their design team attended, was pretty eye-opening for them, because I think if you played the original towering on their ideal board, where everything is blocked in, everything has a first floor on it, right? It sucked, but you could see how they arrived at the conclusion that this was the correct solution. But not even Games Workshop for those opens could supply enough tables that had
Yeah.
Like all the ruins even had roofs, so you have the thing where the knight walks up and slaps his gun across your ruin and then shoots down, right? It's
Yep. Oh no, and
yeah.
and
So,
also they had inconsistent ruins or pieces where
yep.
even like the 2 inches were supposed to be. So then like some of them were blocked, some of them weren't, like, you know, like would give line of sight blocking. So with that kind of inconsistency, yeah, they had to make a change. So
Yeah, and
so now
this is good.
aircraft are still not affected by this. So aircraft, they can just be seen, right?
Aircraft are still towering, basically.
Yes, yes. But aircraft aren't in the meta because they can't come on turn one, and there's other issues with aircraft. But basically now a knight, if he sticks
That's
his pinky finger,
video.
you know, yeah, oh yeah, whole other video, sticks his pinky finger into a ruin, he can be seen, he can be shot, he can shoot you. All right, as long as now, if there's 2 ruins and he sticks himself into one and you're behind the other one, you're still okay. So it's only the ruin that he's touching that he can now see through, and which is big because now again, like, he's not seeing the whole board. So
the close combat knights, I know Daniel's really excited to run a couple of gallants now because it goes both ways, right? The gallant can no longer be shot from across the board, right? And on Games Workshop layouts, those big knights can get real close to you before you get a chance to shoot them.
It's hilarious that, you know, in a typical Games Workshop layout, there's nothing higher than 5 inches, and yet they included was it plunging fire as a rule set, which doesn't even work on their terrain. And then then you have like custom board sets where then you can hide knights like WTC and stuff like that, where you have high,
very tall L's. Yes.
Yeah, but then you can't shoot out of them anyway because they don't have windows. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, now combat knights are going to be a thing. You know, because you see them, they see you, and you know, even the combat knights. Like I went up against the new ones now that are made out of plastic. The guy with the shield.
The Lancer, and I don't.
And that Gatling gun is still deadly on that thing, man. Yeah. So he had both. So he had the guy with the shield and the I don't know what it was, the spear,
the guy with the bolt cannon and the sword, and the guy with the shield and the spear.
Yeah, and they were coming at me, you know, hard. So
also by far my favorite knight chassis. Love them.
Oh, yeah, I love. Yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome. All right, so let's move on to page. So those were all of the core rule changes, stratagem changes. So now we get on to army changes, and I was hopeful that we weren't going to get taken out back and shot and beat, but Custodes got a couple of heavy-handed things handed to them.
Yeah, you and I got handed to the reasonable design team, and they went, okay, how do we take care of this?
Yeah. So, you know, Custodes lost their hammer. They lost, and it's gonna feel weird because, you know, if you look at a Terminator, right? And you look at a Custode, they have the same stat line almost, right? Like 2 up, 4 up, right? There's a little bit difference in toughness, right? A little bit, and we're not talking weapons, but we're just talking, you know, just the body, right? 3 wounds, 2 up, 4 up, right? And now every army or Space Marine army can still bring their 10 mans, right? Can still bring that hammer, but Custodes can't. So Custodes now, instead of being in 4, 5, 9, and 10 man squads, can only go in 4 and 5s. So you still can't even do back to the 3s. It's only 4 and 5s. And then wardens, which are the more durable, which is funny when you say that, the more durable custodians, because they have a once per game feel no pain. They're now only in 4 and 5s. And what was weird about that was because originally they could only run in 3 and 6s, which did match the box thing that they were trying to do at the beginning of 10th. And then another weird nerf, which no one cares, is the bikes now can't run in 5 and 6s. They have to run in 2 and 3s.
Someone at Games Workshop HQ got run over by a unit of bikes randomly and said never again. I don't know why that's in there.
The only conceivable reason that I think they did that is they have a once per game ability where they can literally nuke you off the board if they advance over you, right? But their weapons are not assault. They cannot advance and charge in any other way. But what they do is if they fly over you, and again, actually,
do they do immortal?
Yeah. So actually, now that I'm even thinking about it, it doesn't even change because it's based on the models that they fly over. So let's say they fly over a unit of 10, neophytes, right? For every 2 up, and I roll 1 dice per enemy model, you suffer 2 mortal wounds.
Yeah.
So, like, they can do some damage. Now, if they fly over a knight, who cares, right? But if they fly over bigger squads, they can really wreck bigger squads. But now, like, no one was even taking 2 bikes in any list. Like, if you're playing competitive Custodes, you're not bringing bikes. They were like 90-something points a model or 90 points a model. They were toned way down.
This change doesn't affect their ability very much at all because all it's doing is making sure you have less bases.
I guess that's what it is.
To argue about how many guys you're flying over with your opponent.
Yeah.
I hate when they do a count things because it brings back the old template where you're like, I can fly over 4 things. No, you can't. You can only fly over 3 models.
Yeah. So those are the big changes to Custodes. Really, it's to nerf the 30 Custode build, where you bring 3 big blocks. You bring some extraction squads, and speaking of extraction squads, we'll go over those. Extraction squad,
exactly.
And
cops, space cop squads.
Basically, space squads. The Judge Dreads of 40K, but basically, it was to limit that build at 1 Tacoma. And which was funny because it didn't really do well outside of Tacoma. It's been struggling. It does well, but it's
I was gonna say it had counters. Like it's a bit of a coin flip once you get up to that top cut. It's like basically, hey, I run over 85 to 90% of the lists in the game. Are you in the 90% or are you in the 10%? Because if you're in the 10%, I may lose this game. But there were a lot of builds that could not. You put 30 Custodes in the middle of the table on turn 1, and you said, "Can you kill them?" And most armies said, "Sure can't." And then you go, "Here's 150, attacks that hit on 2s. I don't care what your stat line is. I am going to kill you." Right.
No, and the one thing about that list, because I tried it, I tried it at the league finals here in BC, and the big challenge with it was, you won and lost in your positioning, right? If you weren't positioned correctly, you couldn't score and you couldn't do things, right? And it was a bit of a boring list too, because literally, like you said, you just ran at people, right? And it didn't really have any versatility that, like, if you bring in the Alaris and you can come up and down and you can do things with them. But it nerfed that out. The Warden one, I was a little bit surprised at. I thought they were going to leave them alone as far as unit size. But and Custodes definitely got point increases, so we'll go over that when we do that. But I'll let you go over Mechanicus.
Okay. Hey, Rangers got ever so slightly tougher. That's probably good. Vanguard also got ever so slightly tougher. That's also probably good.
I think this would have been huge if you could still run them in 20-mans. Being still 10-mans, it helps, but it's not huge. So
I was kind of expecting. I think I and probably everyone who would like to see AdMech on the table was hoping that section would change their detachment rule. Or at least make it optional. For the love of God, at least make it optional.
No, exactly. So, Eldari. So literally, and this is the way it's been described to me. And I started playing. I got interested in the game in 8th, but I didn't really start playing till 9th, and so I'm new. newish to 40K compared to a lot of people, but this stratagem that they have, which is Phantasm, which has been nerfed, but not nerfed completely, is probably the best stratagem in the game. And the reason why was your entire enemy's army, or the entire enemy, could move. You could see exactly what they were going to do, and then you could then move one of your units 7 inches away. So they had to commit, and you could just say nope and pull your stuff back into safety. So no other stratagem or move characteristics or other abilities A, let you go full movement at like 7 inches, but B, was after they were done, right? Their complete move phase. So now it's been limited to infantry. So huge change for the Wraith Knight and everything else.
Yeah. This helps because they added a restriction. Considering that and we'll see other places where they change things to 2 CP from 1 CP.
That should have been a 2 CP strat.
The fact that Phantasm isn't 2 CP, or even 3 CP if you use it on a 10-man squad or something like that is insane.
Oh, absolutely!
It is by far the best stratagem in the game, and I don't.
And they have CP regeneration, right? So
the Way Leaper for some reason still exists, and he didn't go up very much. So, anyways, we'll get there in a bit. Agents of the Imperium, they have sold enough Space Cop squads.
Yes, they have.
Because
I have a batch of them sitting right here that were about to be built.
Exactly.
No longer will be built.
They're like, all right, cool. We sold enough Space Cop squads. So now you cannot take a 5-man. You have to take a 10-man. So you got to spend the extra points. So now they're going to start clearing out their backlog of Voidsmen at Arms who can still be taken in 5-man squads. And then after they clear out their backlog of them, then they'll figure out what to do after that.
So the funny thing with Voidsmen that a lot of people, that's funny they say they're 5-man, they actually increased the size of it in 10th to 6, because what they did is they allowed you to just auto take the rotary cannon dude, who's normally just sitting out on his own that nobody would take because he was like 12 points.
They put him in.
Yeah, so for 40 points you get 6 models, and you get a rotary cannon which is like 5 or like 3 or 4 shots, strength 6, -1/1 damage. Not a bad little. I mean, I think he hits on 4s, but I mean, whatever, right? Like it's just a little spice into it. But and then
it makes it so that for a lot of Imperial armies, the Space Cops are no longer your best objective holder. Either you've got something in your army that are just as cheap and get your keywords, or you take 6 Voidsmen at Arms instead because it's cheaper.
Absolutely. So the next one, big changes. I like these changes. I think the first 2 are definitely going to be more used out of their new detachment rules. So basically Death Guard, who have been sitting at the bottom, they have some new detachment rules, which basically means that they get to pick from and I love these names, a Skull Squirm Blight, which is, while an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, worsen the ballistic skill, weapon skill characteristics of the weapon equipped by models in that enemy unit by 1. So that's pretty spicy. And then you've got Rattle Joint Ague. I think I said that right.
We're giving them arthritis.
Basically, while an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, worsen the save characteristics of the model in that enemy unit by 1. So that's spicy too. So when you're dealing with anything that's got a high save rate, and all of a sudden, like, you're just, instead of saving on 4, you're saving on 5. So you save, like, that's gonna really help them with their lethality. And then now,
Four Sisters Repentia go all the way up to an 8-up save at that point, I believe.
Exactly. A Scarosis. I can't even say that. Scarosius. I'm not even gonna There you go. Soul rot. While an enemy unit is within contagion range, this unit worsen the leadership and objective control characteristics of models in the enemy unit to a minimum of 1. Now,
thank you for putting those flipping brackets in for once, Games Workshop.
Exactly. If that didn't have the minimum of 1, I think
we would have an argument again.
No, but if it said it could go to 0,
yes,
right, or something, that would be super good, because you like that would be key for them, because their other abilities, they have to hold objectives to kick them off, right, for them to sticky, right?
Yeah.
So if you're just like, and the problem is they have to hold that the turn, so you move on to the objective and you're like, haha, suck, I'm OC2 or I'm OC1. You're like, no, you're 0. You're just done, right? Yeah. And you don't get to take the objective away from them. That would be key. But I think the first 2 are going to be seen a lot more.
These changes are good. It doesn't. Death Guard have
they're slowish.
Problem that is like inherent in their design, right? Like it's intentional.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If I don't think
very slow. So
I think if they had kept their -1 damage, with the slowness, that would make more sense. But
I mean, the worsening ballistic skill and weapon skill characteristics of the enemy will give you a nice little durability buff, right? Because they can't wound you if they can't hit you, right? So that's going to be really good, and it's going to be really annoying to deal with in later battle rounds where that contagion range is huge. 6 and 9 inches, right? I think it's the 3rd round it goes to 9 inches.
Yeah, I think it starts at 3, 6, 9. Yeah. I've played Death. So the funny thing is, I played Death Guard in 10th at the warehouse one night, and even though they were slow and they brought a lot of stuff in, like Terminators, like for Deep Strike and stuff, they were still doing pretty well score wise. It's just they have no long game retention, because there was just like, even though they are tougher Marines than other Chaos Marines, right?
They're not tough.
They're not tough enough. They're just not tough enough, right? So, and that's the big problem.
Interesting to see on their end too, because of the devastating wound change, right? Mm-hmm. Their toughness does matter a little bit more now.
Yes,
potentially, right? Potentially.
Absolutely. And then Death Watch.
Okay. We changed their stratagems here just to specify bolt weapons.
Yeah, because I think they have the mortal wound stuff that was bad, right? That they could pump out. Yeah.
They have a list of what a bolt weapon is now, which is nice.
That's good.
I'm surprised they didn't have one of these already, because like a stratagem or a rule referencing a type of weapon and then having those weapons listed existed previously in the game. So it's kind of funny that it didn't exist before, but
it's fun. It's funny though, because of Vigil Spear, I believe, which is, I think, the spear that's carried by the watch captain, right? Is actually a Custodes spear that they give them.
It's a bolt weapon now.
Well, they tone it down. Actually, they put it. So I believe
in the governor on it.
Yeah, no, they changed the bolter in it, because so that a Space Marine can wield it, because the Custodes apparently weapon is very unwieldy for a Space Marine.
Kicks like a mule.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So
had to put smaller bullets in it.
Yeah, so
I haven't played Death Watch.
No,
in 10th edition, we don't really have a Death Watch player in our area that plays regularly.
Yeah, that's the problem. Plays regularly. So we have Shane Unger, who has beautiful Death Watch army. He's tried to sell it to me many times. But he's not playing anymore. And then Chris has a Primaris only.
Beautiful Death Watch army as well that eventually will see the light of day.
I think once the new units are out, and with Firstborn sort of being retired, I think that might be a good build, right? I mean, we'll see. So, all right. Oh, I'm not even going to touch this one, so I'm just going to let you go with this one.
We got halfway to the correct result, which is just removing this rule entirely. But what we did do
went a little harsh.
I think between this and the points changes, they might have been a little bit harsh, but yeah, you can always walk things back in the future. But okay, so originally this call to ambush rule said that if your battle line, you got to roll a 1+ on a d6, so you were just automatic because you added 3 to your 4+ roll, and then everything else was a 4+ roll. So now that the roll is now a 5+ and not a 4+.
Yeah.
You add 1 if it's battle line. So battle line units will come back on a 4+ for most of the game. And if you are making this roll in the first or second battle round, you get to add 1 regardless of unit type.
So really second round is going to be, well, even... Yeah, second round. I mean, first round.
There are either first turn charges or
right.
Or like people can pick up and put down and shoot things, right? So potentially, you might be rolling this if you go second, right? So you basically went from your battle line recycling 100% of the time to 50% of the time. That is a huge.
But in round 2 on your neophytes, you'd be cycling 66% of the time because you'd be on a 3+, right? Because isn't it add 1 for battle? Yeah, so it's add 1 for battle line, add 1 for round 2. So in round 2 on a 3+.
So if I go first, this is potentially very relevant because I drop on you on my turn 2. I hopefully kill a bunch of stuff. You kill me back, and then I get to roll. It's your turn 2 when I'm rolling. I'm coming back on a 3. But if I went, if it's the other way around, right, and I drop on you bottom half of 2, you kill me top half of 3, right? So it's.
I think it's a good change, but I think the 5+ was a little high for battle line. I would have I was thinking. Remember when we were talking? I was saying like keep the 4, but
the battle line is going to be 4. It's an odd sort of mathematical buff to the non-battle line units because now they're only 16% worse than the battle line rather than infinitely worse. So cool.
Yeah, and I mean let's like what? There's very few things in the game that can now take a unit of 10 aberrants out in one turn.
And they paid for those sins.
Oh, they did. Yeah. Well, I mean, but see, the thing is, you got to keep your 10 mans.
It's true.
That's true. So, but
I think this mechanic is inherently unbalanceable. But like I said, we got halfway to the correct result, which is now we're on 4+. And then the only other change they made was they realized it was actually incredibly difficult to place a full bike squad.
Yes.
Not impossible,
but very hard.
If you placed your token just so, you could in fact fit a bike squad there. But now
they're giving you some leeway.
If for some reason you have bikes in your army, they're going to save you 10 minutes of measuring.
Good. Well, that was because I mean, if you're running full big blocks in GSC, your clock is your enemy, and for you to sit there and measure to try and bring bikes back, it just wasn't worth it.
No one is running bikes anymore. But
this seems to probably make them more viable, right? So
I'll talk about that in the points. I'll touch bikes there.
Grey Knights, an army that I have actually bought. I have a Grey Knight army sitting there. It's half painted. I need to assemble some more Terminators. Now with the point decreases, it's very spicy. I think they still have some serious anti-tank issues, but they have just changed one of their stratagems to strategic ploy. I don't even know what that stratagem is at the moment. I have to go and look that one up, unless you've got that in front of you. I could get it
No,
in
but
front of me here.
I can
Actually, you know
pull
what? I might even have it. How about you do Imperial Knights real quick, and I'll circle back on to, because I've got the Grey Knight Index here. Why don't you hit Imperial Knights?
Yep. So Imperial Knights. Alrighty. So we've added a little bit to the Bondsman ability, and until the start of the next command phase, the armature model you selected is affected by that Bondsman ability. I guess this is to head off giving Bondsman ability to other
the big boys,
Saurus models, or any other model other than an armature. So there's that, and then because it's not the elf design team, 2 stratagems did increase in cost to 2.
Oh, they needed that.
And Thunderstomp changed to Epic Deeds. I am assuming it was previously a battle tactic.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Here, let's see.
Let me see.
I've got it here. Thunderstomp. Yeah, Thunderstomp was definitely a battle tactic.
Yes.
And that was the one where it was in the fight phase, has not fought. At the end of the phase, your model cannot target monsters or vehicles, but all melee weapons equipped by your model have devastating wounds. So, yeah.
So you can't use that for free. That's the big thing.
No. And so I think that's a good change to Knights. I mean, with the new towering rules, it'll be interesting to see how they handle the GW board style. But I think they're going to be a lot more fun to play, both for the player and for the person you're playing against, especially in the knight-to-knight matchup, because the problem was whoever rolled to go first.
That was definitely a dice off, and then
Yeah.
Okay, and you got to do the first guy shooting phase because it's a dice game, and sometimes shit happens, right? But,
yeah, exactly. So go back to the Grey Knights. The Haloed in Soulfire, yes, was a battle tactic. Now it's strategic ploy, and that was the one that was 2 CP, and it was when you arrive either through teleport, assault, or deep strike. Until the end of your next movement phase, your unit cannot be targeted by range attacks unless the attacking model is within 12. So now you can't do that for free. And it's just because you would deep strike your block in, right? And then someone couldn't overwatch you because they were, over 12. So that just helps with it helps that they don't get it for free, but at least
it's 2 CP, so it's pretty rare to see at that point.
Yeah. Leagues of Votann, my bane of 9th edition. I did not like playing Leagues of Votann at all. But they've got some new rules.
They decided that instead of selecting one enemy unit at the start of the game to be +1 to hit, +1 to wound, you should select 4.
I know. I was like, what? When I read that, I was like, it's got to be 4.
They needed something big, so good for them.
Yeah,
that does feel like the elf design team going we don't do incrementals, so just go from 1 to 4, and away we go. Against a lot of armies, that is just effectively +1 to hit, +1 to wound, because they'll have 3-ish units that you really care about, and then
Custodes, right? So you're gonna if I had the bricks, you would just be like brick 1, brick 2, brick 3, right? But yeah.
Because you can select 3 big scary things and then 1 piece of trash that you're going to kill early, and then you go kill the piece of trash. You get a bunch of CP.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's the spicy thing. So if you think about it, that's an extra.
Hey, those 5 pointsmen at arms in the back.
Yeah.
I don't like them very much.
That's 4 extra CP to them in the game, because I don't think they had CP regen, or if they did, it was very expensive. I can't remember. We'd have to talk to Dan, but
I don't recall. But,
and then Space Marines.
Space Marines.
Oh my God, they actually listened to people and reined in. I think they sold enough Desolation Marines to now be like, okay, we've given them a hike increase. We just can't keep doing that, so we're just going to limit their squad size. So, um, Desolation Marines. I mean, I can imagine into GSC, they were nasty.
Yeah, they were amongst targets number one.
Yeah. Into Custodes, I never really cared about them unless they were shooting their super cracks at me, and I usually didn't ever try to let them see me until I got into them. But the indirect wasn't a big thing for me. But yeah, the for most armies in the game, because you can't increase an armor save of 3 to a 2 in cover, you're still saving on 3s. So
well, the big thing too was, you could, with the 10-man squad, you could buff them with strats and enhancements very efficiently, and then obviously Oath is a massive buff.
Huge.
Yeah.
So
right. But now they're down to 5-mans. That's going to fix a lot of their issues.
Oh yeah, and then if you want to invest in them, like you're going to invest 2 characters, you're going to like it's more of an investment, and then each one can't be buffed to the same level, right? Yeah. So I like that change because Space Marines got point decreases on a lot of stuff. But so we'll hop over to rule changes real quick. It's like one thing. Basically.
There's one red line of text in this document somewhere.
Yeah, for some reason I can't find it here, but it's basically I believe the eligible to shoot units. Let me see if maybe I grab the right document. I think I did, but basically they were just saying if you had a gun and you shot, and you had an ability to shoot again or something, like you weren't eligible to do the action. I think it's basically what the rule change was. So real simple, nothing to look at. And then, so let's rip into some points. We're not going to cover everything. We're going to go more into our factions, but just going back to Sisters, point drops all over the place.
Yeah, this is what they did with a lot of the factions that were right at the bottom. So they're a good illustration. Is they just sort of like
want more models on the table.
Select almost all. Give a points decrease.
I think the funny thing is actually Crusaders went up because people were actually using them, but everything else I think went down.
Yeah, like Paragon Warsuits and Vol. I think Vol went down maybe 10-ish points.
Yeah.
I can't remember what she was off the top of my head, but her and the Paragons went down. Repentia went down. They still don't kill very much, but hey, they're cheaper.
Oh, so what in 10th? What are they still strength 6 or are they higher than that?
Yeah, no, I believe they're still strength 6.
Okay.
Sisters are one of the armies that got the memo about less lethal.
No tanks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Custodes. Okay. So not only
a lot of red. It's a lot of red.
Not only did we lose our hammer in our 10-man squads, and you know what? I don't mind the change. I want to, I'm going to play with it and see how it is. I wish they would just say, like, you couldn't run more than 1 10-man, because running 1 10-man was so fun. Running 3 was brain-numbingly, like, just run at people, right? But running 1, was kind of fun for me. So basically, Alaris Custodians went up. I think this was an okay change. People weren't running them in mass. They were really just running them in 2 and 3 model squads. So a slight increase. It's 5 points. It's not crazy. It's because their ability to go up and down, I think they got a little bit hit. Custodes when 10th came out, Custodes got nerfed in a number of ways. One was speed. Because we are a combat army, we excel in the combat phase. They slowed us down. Like all dreadnoughts dropped 3 inches of movement, other than the Telemon, right? Grab tanks dropped 4 inches of movement. Spikes went down 2. Venatari went down 2, right? Terminators went from 6 to 5. Sisters went from 7 to 6. Like all of our movement got hit, but all of our points increased because we own the fight phase. So Alaris, the ability to go up and down, is now, taking that 5-point hit. Rhino stayed the same. Blade Champion was, I think, a little too good at 100 points, but 120 I think is a little steep. I think 110 would have been a better change. So Custodian Guard were an amazing deal at 45 points. So you had a 2-up, 4-up, 3 or 4 wound model, depending on the kit, and rerolled all their wounds when they controlled an objective, and they rerolled ones to wound outside of an objective. So allowed them to double shoot. They had great OC value, especially if you added a Vexilla. So now you can only run them in 4 and 5 mans, and they're 50 points a model now. So they've gone up 5. Wardens used to be 50 points a model. They're now 55 points a model, so slight adjustment. Everyone kind of had 1 Warden squad in their army, usually 6 models. Now they're 4 and 5s, so not a big change, which actually works out a little bit better if you want to start running Land Raiders, because Land Raiders capped at 6 models. So now you can run a character with your blob in your Land Raider. Speaking of said Land Raider, it went down in points. So that's a nice change. Now, they only run 1 type of Land Raider. If they run the Redeemer, I would be taking that every game. But they do not run a Redeemer. They run the basic. Now, it's a better basic Land Raider than most armies because it does hit on 2. It does not have an invul, but everything in the game other than really scary Aldari is really AP2, 3, especially in cover, right? So you're always saving on 4s and 5s.
Yeah, and you're so big you're in cover, which seems a bit
Exactly.
Yeah, it sounds a bit backwards, but it's you're so big that like part of your model is always
going to be
something.
Yeah. You put a little turret off to the side, whatever, right? And then you're in cover. Prosecutors stayed the same because they were already 40 points for 4 of them. No big deal. Shield captains did go up 10. Which is interesting. I thought they were going to go up a little bit more, and I thought Blade champions were actually not going to go up as high. The interesting thing about the Shield captains was the Terminator captain, which a lot of people don't run, which is not nearly as good as the regular Shield captain because he doesn't give you double katas in the fight phase. He just gives you fight on death. It's a weird thing that he has. Went up as well 10 points, and he's not he's not in a lot of lists, so it's very weird to see him.
Dawn Eagle jet bike also go up 10 points.
Yeah, he also went up 10 points.
Control F Shield captain plus 10.
Yeah, exactly. Boom. And then the man, the myth, the legend, Trajan went up 15, which is what I thought a regular Shield captain was going to go up. Valerian, who is a named Shield captain, which is I'm thinking is actually kind of spicy now. The only problem is you can't put an enhancement on him. He is 115 points. The big thing that he does is he does have a feel no pain like Trajan, but he doesn't have the free strat rule. What he does get is the ability to reroll a dice every turn or battle round. And once per game can turn 1 thing into a 6. So it's situational, but could be pretty key.
Land Raider, is it any die into a 6?
Any die, anything he wants.
But is it him or like if I'm charging with his unit?
I'm pretty sure it's him.
Right. Like you can't roll your 2 dice for a charge with his unit and go, I think that's a 6 now, because that would be very spicy indeed.
Oh, yes. He basically his rules are now. One thing about him too, though, is his spear is better than a normal custodian spear. It is a named spear. It's Genosis. It's very famous. It came out of there's a book with him and Alea. Funnily enough, he has no Miscordia anymore, even though he has one on his model, because he gave it to her and that's where his teleport beacon is. That's why she could teleport units in ninth. But so once per battle round, you can reroll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, 1 saving throw. So that's his once per battle round. In additional once per battle, you can make a hit roll, wound roll, saving throw roll, and change the result of that to an unmodified 6. So it's only those rolls. Now, the spicy thing about him, though, in combat, because he doesn't get the double katas, anything that he fights, he worsens their AP by 1.
Okay, that's cute.
So going in, yeah,
he is now 25 points cheaper than a regular Shield captain.
Exactly. So
right, you might see him.
Yeah, I think he might make the table now. Now Virtus Praetors did drop. They went down to 80 points. Um, Still, I'm not sure on them yet. At 80 points, they're at ninth level points now. But the problem is that their output is way down. They don't move as far, and they're only T6. They
And
were
I mean, they don't move as far, and they're flying models that aren't infantry. So, oh
exactly.
boy, do they not move as far.
Exactly. So, and then they're T6. The Custodian Guard was T6. So they did not get any toughness in the newer edition. Vigilators, though, which are the Sisters with the Swords, which I have only used in one game, and in that game was hilarious because they are anti-psyker 4-up, and I got them into a squad of zone throws, and they wiped that squad. So um, they dropped. They used to be 60 points. They're now 50 points for 4. Same with Witch Seekers. They dropped 10 points. And then a lot of Forge World dropped because they just weren't being used, other than one Dreadnought actually went up. So Agamatus bikes, you can only run them in 3. They dropped. They're now 80 points each. They could be a little spicy, but they're expensive to buy and probably not worth it. Quillon Terminators, which I absolutely love. I used to love them in ninth. I used them in ninth. Now
They're
you
the
can run them in.
fist dudes.
Yeah, so the fist has been toned back, but the the claw is spicy. And they're one of your only flamer units, and they're infantry. So they've dropped. They're the same point cost now as an Alaris. The only difference is the Alaris get to reroll into characters, monsters, and vehicles. They do not. They only get to reroll ones to wound into their closest target. So they're a little bit less effective, but they pack different weaponry. So,
less. So
yeah, the Killis Dreadnought has gone up in points because they realize that if you stack that unit with tank shock, it will obliterate anything that it could get to. But the problem is it moves 6 inches, and it's T9, and it's really not. It's 2 up, 5 up. It's not as durable. Everything else stayed the same, other than Custodian Guards with Adrite and Phthite spears. Those are the Melta, or the sort of the heavy bolt. They're not really heavy bolters. They're a 3 damage gun.
Weird.
They
They're
dropped.
locked to 5.
It's because they're a Forge World spear upgrade for 5 spears.
Yeah, it's an upgrade kit, though, right? So
yeah. So Aurora, now the spicy thing about this is the Grav tank stayed the same. Best tank that we have stayed the same at 215. Palace Grav stayed the same. I thought that was going to drop because right now it's overcosted. Now Sagittarium, which you didn't see in a lot of lists, they dropped 5 points because you have to bring them in model of 5, and so they were 250 before.
Points, 5 points per model.
Per model, yeah. So now they're 45 points, so they're now cheaper than Custodian Guard, and I think that's because of the denseness of the boards. Yeah, it's hard for them to get line of sight. And then what I really want to try out is the Venatari. Venatari have dropped. They are a weird.
Oh, that's the 60, unit, right?
Yes, they are 68 points. Something 3 for 200, 6 for 400. The interesting that the thing that about them is they get to rapid ingress for free. They deep strike. They only move 10 instead of 12 now, but they are infantry. Their pistols, which were the best pistols in the game, are now weaker. They're only damage 1 versus damage 2. But their spears are really good because their spears are what Custodian Guard carry, so you can still hit pretty hard with them. You don't get any character support, but you're paying for the movement, right? So that's
overall, the list that you ran last. Now, obviously, you'd have to split the 10 mans into 5 mans, right? But how many points did you go up? Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
Funnily enough, before I updated the app, I smoked my list because I was like, I didn't want to feel the pain. But I can tell you, I was running 10 Custodian Guard and another 5-man and 6 Wardens. So that's 21 models. That would be 21 models by 5 points. So that's what or 100 and something points in Custodian Guard, plus Shield Captain, Trajan. I think my list went up about,
so somewhere between 150 and 200 points. You're in that ballpark.
Yeah. I think I was actually closer to about 150. So because the tanks did, because the tanks stayed the same, and I've been running 2 tanks for a while now. So I haven't been running any dreadnoughts or any of the other stuff that dropped. So I didn't really get any price decreases. Just really it was the infantry that all went up. So I have already a new list that I've got in my book. I've been toying around with it. I'm gonna see what it does. But so that's Custodes. Sorry, I spent a little bit of extra time on that. Mechanicus.
You want to just go down to
we'll hit,
unless you got something crazy to say on anything else there.
Well, quick,
we can take 2 minutes to go. You see how much less red there is in Eldar.
I think everything.
Shout out to the Elf design team, because the Incarn went up 80 points, and it's still bonkers.
Oh, jeez.
It's still a massively broken rule. It's just you have to pay 80 more points for it. But shout out to them for.
I mean, at least it's over 300 points. At least it's 350 points now. Like, it was just too cheap. So I think Fire Prisms went up 30 points. So I mean, that's
Fire Prisms now.
No, I think you're still seeing Fire Prisms. You're just not seeing the Wraith Knight. The Wraith Knight went up, and he's not as effective. His devastating wounds are way down, and his towering advantage is gone. The big thing for me was the War Walkers went up. I'm trying to find them here.
My immediate gut reaction of you won't see Fire Prisms, or at least the list is not going to start with 3 Fire Prisms. They've got so much efficient anti-tank in the list.
Yes.
That the fact that your 3 Fire Prisms now cost you 90 more points will probably make it so that they just, probably will just go, well, I've got this other thing over here that's just as good at it, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad to see the Hornet went up. It still only went up 10 points, but where was the one that we were talking about? The one that slows you down. It's the Night Spinner, right?
The Night Spinner went up as well. It's sitting at 180.
Not enough though. It went up 10 points.
Yeah, you're not. The Wayleaper somehow is not 150 points in this army. Because if you weren't going to increase the CP cost of Phantasm because reasons, the guy who just straight up gives you an extra CP a turn should have probably gone up a lot more.
Absolutely. So,
because you can't Vect Phantasm anymore.
Yep. Oh, remember how I was saying Voidsman? They made changes. They made changes to them.
Yeah,
and 5 models, so they kicked that poor rotary guy back out. Actually, I guess he could go in. And the other ones don't. So
yeah.
Extraction were updated, but the big one here is the Caldas down to 90 points. So that's a 25 point drop. So I think that's good. Not going anywhere near guard. Don't. Black Templars, Blood Angels. Let's see, Chaos Space Marines. Do you know if they went up or down? I think they.
Like I said, I'll just scroll down to cults.
Unless
you got I mean, this is good. I'm assuming all of this stuff went down. I'm hoping.
Yes, so. Everything went down. Absolutely, everything went down. Death Guard. Drukari at the bottom. I was talking to Brandon, or I saw him chatting. He said everything that went down got offset by the transports going up. So
Okay. So Gene Stealer cults, lots of red. Almost everything went up. The only thing that went down, Pure Strain Gene Stealers over there in the corner. 10 points off. Because 10 models used to be 180, so 10 points off the 10, 5 points off the 5. They're still crap, but they're less crap. suppose.
do they not did they not get the treatment of the other gene stealers? Because I thought other gene stealers got to re-roll on objectives or something, but
So like the big thing about the big reason that pure strain gene stealers are not great right now is the damage output. The strength 4 is real bad.
Yeah,
and
that is
there's
bad.
no way to buff it, right? So if in the future Gene Stealer Cult Codex you have a similar Twisted Helix where they go to strength 5, yeah, we're cooking now, right? The strength 4 just means when you don't hit the devastating wounds, which you've got to put the Patriarch in there to get in the first place, you don't kill anything, right? You're strength 4 AP2, you kill nothing. And you're 1 damage. So even if they fail their save, right? You know. But anyway, they went down. So love it for them. Everything else in red went up, and that needed to happen. So the battle line all needed to go up, right?
What did your list go up?
So my list that I ran at the last RTT went up 270 odd points. So the second unit of Aberrants died for my sins. Because the Aberrants went up 40 points.
They went up for a 5-man or a 10-man?
40 points for, I mean, it's the same.
But a
5-man, 40 points for a 10-man. Right.
So they went up 4 points a model.
They were 330 points before. They are 370 points now. You still maybe like 1 unit still feels good. But
if you just gotta hold that objective.
Here's the thing, right? Like people are getting wise around here, which I don't like. Because the number of people in my last like 10 games that have every time they hit a Gene Stealer Cult unit in combat go, is there a character in there? Yeah, that asshole in the back. Yeah, I'm precision. My character is precision now, right? So the Biophagus died a bunch to precision lately.
Oh, you haven't been using the Abominant?
Well, with 2 units.
With the second one.
Now the Abominant stays in, but he's 75 points. Right. And that's assuming you're not infiltrating them for another 40 points. Which I don't know. I might have to take that off at some point. But the thing is now you're choosing between 10 Aberrants and an Abominant or 40 Neophytes and friends, right?
You
can't quite get 1 Primus in there because the Primus went from I believe he was 70 points to 90 points. I believe he went up 20 points.
Oh, wow.
I mean, full rerolls is real good.
That's spicy.
I have converted a 3rd one. I am painting him right now. Like that. The Nexus went up, not as much as I thought, but his free CP, his 0 CP strat is now much less impactful because it is just battle tactics, right? The Saboteur went up as well. So she is now the most expensive of the lone ops.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Right. She's by far the best. So
did the Locust go up or did he go down?
I believe he went down. I think he was. I want to say he was 50 points before.
Yeah.
He was either 40 and he went up 5 for no reason, or he was 50 and he went down 5.
Yeah.
Which is cool. The Clamavis went up.
Yeah. He's the one that's giving you the free CP, right? On the roll.
No, that's just
the anti-deep strike, right?
He gives me the anti-deep strike thing. The bomb squad got off pretty late at a 20-point increase.
Yeah, that's interesting because also when they do come back, they do get their bombs back now. Like they did clarify that, right? I believe.
So they have ruled thus. Yes. There's some discussion back and forth in Gene Stealer Cult Discord. A lot relies on what you think the word identical means. Right? Because the argument is, well, if it's identical, they fired their one-shot weapons, but one shot says this model has thrown this weapon, and by
But I
definition,
thought it said
models.
a new, but it says
yeah,
new
it says a
unit,
new
right?
unit that is identical. So that's a rabbit hole that nobody should go down.
Well, it's like they didn't clarify the Trajan modifier thing either, right? So
it's one of these things where you read it and it is clear until someone points out the way that they read it, because you read it one of two ways. It doesn't seem like it needs clarification when you read it, and then someone brings something up, right? But the thing I wanted to point out here is that it's very much everything goes up. So one thing went down, the gene sealers. They didn't go down by enough to matter.
To make it worth,
I think they went down because of the devastating wounds interaction. It doesn't really make too much of a difference for them because they're 1 damage models, but I feel like that's probably where that came from. Jackals went up for some god-awful reason. I don't know why. So the thing is, right?
Yeah.
From 9th to 10th, right? They took all of the damage that a Jackal unit used to do, because the Jackal units, you had a bunch of trash, like a bunch of pistol shots, basically pointers, but you were +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So you make people roll some saves. You had a heavy flamer that could potentially go to 2 damage, and it was usually +1 to wound from their special rule. One of their 12 special rules they had is 12-point models, which was hilarious. And you had demo charges. So you could the unit did a bunch of damage, and they took all of the damage the unit used to do, and they consolidated that into the demolition run rule, which is mortal wounds when I move close to you. But the rest of the unit does 0 damage, right? Like I think a full unit maybe kills a Marine. Shoots at it, right? It's a whole bunch of trash shots hitting on 4s. It's 2 grenade launchers hitting on 4s.
No AP.
The 2 flamers, which are probably where you're getting your 1 Marine, right? And then they nerfed demolition run into the ground because it feels bad. It was very feels bad to go like, hey, I drive up to you. Here's 7 or 8 mortal wounds. I shot at you with the character. Rest in peace, Jackal Alphys, 2023 to 2023. I shot at you with the Jackal Alphys. That means I get to move. Here's another 11 dice. Oh, did you move in my turn? I get to move. Here's another 11 dice, right?
I think when I saw the anger on Chris's face when he was telling me about it,
Chris could have murdered me in the woods. Chris,
and then you did it to me after knowing everything, and I'm like, except I had the 4-up, feel no pain, so I didn't feel bad.
And like after the first few, it was something that worked on somebody once, and then never again. And a 10-man squad is very difficult to hide. The redeploy didn't work for them because of the timing on it. It's just like I don't understand why they went up, because they already removed them from competitive consideration.
Because the same guy that did the custodian nerfs, the guy that did the custodian nerfs did your army too. It wasn't the Eldar guy.
It was just like, hey, these need to go up. But so 270 points on my original list. Because most things went up. Most things needed to go up. But I think what that means now between the points increases and the fact that you don't come back, it is way more of a quality play over a quantity play now, right? Like, I didn't have a 3rd Primus before. I'm painting one up now, right? I didn't have a 2nd Nexos before. I'm painting them up now because there's a good chance that like my unit's going to come down, it's going to fire, and that's going to be it, right? So you really need the full rerolls and the ability to double tap the +1 ballistic skill to even out the
Ridge Runners went up.
Swingy curve.
And the Ridge Runners went up.
They went up, I believe, 5 points. It's 5 or 10 points.
Are you taking them as mortars, or are you taking them still as the las cannons?
I've got in the current list that I have designed with the points changes, I just have one with a mortar.
Yeah.
Because I basically cut the aberrants and turned the 20-man or the 10-man babysitter squad that sat at the back into another 20-man squad, because I've got some more models painted. I need to paint more seismic cannons, and I mean, I think I said it in the general chat. Games Workshop just wants me to paint 40 more neophytes, because honestly, I think that's what.
So
I would have liked them to not to either lower other models or like lowering the rocker. Like, give me a reason to mix up the list rather than going, I need to cut everything that I was kind of experimenting with and just focus on the core thing that's really good.
Yeah, so I think
that's sort of what the changes do.
So the funny thing is, like, you take, GSC models, right? Or let's say, you take a unit of 10 aberrants, right? And you put a character in, right? You're 75 points to a 370 point, unit. Or you take a Primus model into the 20-man neophytes.
So
like
the current,
that's 50.
Yeah. The Primus model is a 50% cost increase into neophytes.
No, he's very
more
spicy.
Than 50%. He's more than a 50% damage output.
Exactly. So he's
the
definitely worth it.
Weird one, because when you put the Abominant in with the infiltrating enhancement, you're looking at a 475 point unit.
Yeah.
At that point, because he comes out to 105.
Yeah.
I don't know that it does 475 points of work.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love it.
So the one thing,
unit, I think you're like the objectively best GSC list is just as many neophytes as you can.
Yeah, because the weapons are spicy, right? So I think the one thing that both your army and my army got hit with is we're gonna like your army, you're gonna have more neophytes and then load them up with characters, right? And it's a heavy character investment. With me,
I got like 600 points in characters.
Yeah, it's like with me, I'm actually gonna lose a character. I actually don't know if the Blade Champ gets in because the squad sizes don't make sense anymore, right? So now I have a 5-man that's what they're 50 points a model, so they're 250 points, and I'm gonna put 100 and like Trajan going into that, like Trajan's more than 50% of the squad, right? So it's weird. Like I wish Trajan also gained the ability to go with like Terminators or something like that, like make him for his point cost be able to do that. But a normal shield captain, you take a normal shield captain down, he's what, 140. You put a like enhancement on him, he's 170. And now that 170 sits on your 250, I can just run a ton of 250 units. You know what I mean? Like a 5-man, I run 6, right? Of the guard. So I'm not sure what I want to do there, because the character investment into a 10-man was super worth it. Is it worth it now?
It becomes
less.
And you can't use that free strat to fight first.
So I have to save.
Gonna be a pretty massive change to the Custode playstyle, I would think. Like the GSC Occult playstyle really hasn't changed. If anything, it's accentuated, because by putting up the points on aberrants and bikes and not really dropping the points on anything else, you've just kind of, from the competitive point of view, you've clarified the picture, right?
Absolutely.
Into the one thing that you want to do, right? Whereas Custodes, you did shake it up pretty significantly.
So I think Trajan is still an auto take just because of his ability to fight first, and then you still have to save the shield captain is still good because the double kata, and he can do the -1 damage strat for free. So it's all about going to be timing now. But I've almost looked at like a going back to like early 9th I think it was early 9th or like late 8th in the like rule wise for Custodes, and like so early 9th edition because we still had the 8th edition rule book. And going like minimal characters, like maybe Trajan, and then just squads of Custodes, right? And seeing how that
flood the board, right?
Yeah, and just because, even playing the 10-mans, they're not like, even though like I like one, it was just like, oh my god, I'm a horde army now. Like it was weird moving 30 custodians on the board. Like I was just like, this is weird, right? And then trying to maintain coherency and like trying not to get shot off the board with that big blob. But I know you've got. Hey, when your models are 50 points a model or 45 points a model, it's a horde army at that. Right?
Yeah, you had to care about coherency for like the first time in your Warhammer life. You're like, oh my god, if I take that model off, I'm gonna lose 3 guys.
And same with blast. Like for me, I was just like, what do you mean you get blast against me? Like I've never had blast against me, right?
The bomb squad was very happy that you were 11 models.
Exactly, right? So now that's all going to be toned down because what blast is 7 now, right? No, though I'm trying to think. Unit coherency is now 7 models, but blast is 5 or above, right?
Blast is still on multiples of 5, and then unit coherency jumps at 6, not 5, I think.
I think it's 7. It's 7.
They changed it to 7. I don't know.
Yeah, it's 7.
I thought it was 6 for like a 5-man plus a character type thing. But
So
okay, hold on. How are you saying that? Because I'm saying you still get the good coherency up to 6 models. Are you saying the bad coherency kicks in at 7?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, so and then none of your enhancements change. Same with Custodes.
So I mean, I guess just to end off, what's your sort of, because I've got one like, hey, on the off chance that this accidentally comes up in a Games Workshop designer's suggestions feed, right? Take the heavy mining weapons from the Acolyte hybrids and put that on the hybrid metamorph data sheets.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Because the hybrid metamorphs are kind of the Celestians of the a unit that's been like not good for, or not really taken for its entire, like, give me those heavy mining weapons on something that you're not going to have to keep nerfing because you gave it demolition charges. 170 points for 10 acolytes with heavy mining weapons is terrible.
Yes.
You would not pay for that.
No.
They don't have enough attacks. It's bad.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I feel you. I feel you.
You have anything for Custodes, a weird suggestion or anything?
From a Custodes, I think they went a little bit different than I would have gone with the stratagems. Like, like saying they have to be like they're sort of changing the stratagems.
I do like that they are actually using they put categories on the strats.
Yes.
I think as early as 8th edition codexes, right? And then they never did anything with that. So I like that they're using it now.
I do too. I think where, like, before the nerf hit, I think with Custodes, I think you could have done a couple things. I had a really bad feeling we were going to get point increases and unit size reductions. I think that might be a little bit too much, but we'll see. I mean, you never know. They can always reverse it. But I think one of
that's the nice thing now is that with updates every 3 or so months, even if your army gets kind of over nerfed, 3 months, I
think I would have done a little differently. I would have just made the fight first stratagem like once a game, or like strike force twice a game or something, right? And I think that would have been pretty decent. Making it not be free is a good change as well. I think they were a little heavy-handed on the Blade Champ, but I mean, we'll see. We'll get a couple games in, and I think the problem with Custodes right now is they're going to go back to an MSU build type, and the Forge World stuff is just not cheap enough for the output that they put in. Like their 9th output was too high, and they were too cheap. It just now they're too low, and it's too expensive, right? So, so it'll be interesting to see where they do with that. I think yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with that. I don't have any other. I think from a game point stand view, the only thing I wish they had addressed in this was indirect. Now, coming from an army that has no indirect, and that's usually not really affected by indirect, because I can be in cover and I'm on a 2-up save.
I think they're still trying. So you remember they did the first points update, and they basically went Control F indirect, Control F towering. Points go up. And then they realized after, I guess watching some games, playing war games, okay, you know what? Like points can't fix towering. Because it's going to be binary. We either have to point things so high that they're all terrible, right? Like, you can have a Wraith Knight. It's 900 points. Right?
Exactly.
Or we have to change towering. I think they are still of the mindset that they can fix indirect with.
I think they had the best indirect at the end of 9th, because it was -1 to your ballistic skill, and it was +1 to your save.
So indirect fire
now is not
has the same problem as aircraft at a game of this scale. Which is like, why the hell is my artillery piece on the board? Right.
It shouldn't be there. Right. So
but the models are cool. So here we are. But the issue is, now you've got your very cool, like, you've got your Basilisk, and for the general health of the game, it should be bad.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Indirect should be bad. Right. It should be for harassing those 5 space cops, or I guess 5 voidsmen that are standing on the back objective. Like, it should kill basically nothing meaningful.
No, exactly.
For the health of the game, right? But it's also a futuristic setting, so like, why wouldn't you have massive artillery pieces that are going to pick up squads, right? Like,
true,
you will. Right.
But I mean, the funny thing,
if you scale thing, right?
Yeah, because if you're an army like Guard, I mean, your artillery pieces would be nowhere near your front line, right? So there'd be so much fodder, right? But you can't do that on this game of the scale. So no, I get it. I think a lot of guys were calling for indirect to be taken out of the game completely. I wouldn't go that far. I think it needs to be toned down. There's like weird rule interactions where you can get certain things to
go
indirect.
The suggestion that everybody and their dog has made is you go back to the 9th indirect penalty, which is a ballistic skill and save modifier.
Yes,
rather than cover, and
because there's so many ways to remove the penalties.
Well, the thing is, like, some models ignore them by datasheet rules, but heavy effectively ignores the indirect penalty.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. You shoot at full ballistic skill. I mean, Games Workshop would argue that, well, no, because you're getting -1 and +1, so it's you're worse off than if you were firing directly, because then you get +1 and -0, right? But a lot of indirect weapons already have the same ballistic skill as a direct fire counterpart, so it's like, well, if you're thinking that way, you probably should have made like a Basilisk ballistic skill 5 or 6, right?
No, exactly.
It's tough. I mean, a lot of indirect platforms went up again in these points updates, so I think you're going to see a lot less of the sort of incidental indirect. It's now going to be more of a skew, right? Like, there's still going to be a Guard player who shows up with like 12 indirect fire platforms and goes like, "Damn the cost!" I dropped 2 of my Scout Sentinels. I'm still just going to shoot you now, right?
So Yeah, no, and I think if they had gone back to ninth, I think that would be a change. But I think before we wrap this up, I'm going to ramble through a couple things, last couple things, and because I know we're going a little long. Gray Knights point decreases across the board. Big thing about this,
Same as
Nemesis Dread Knights, baby. I think have play now. They have come down. The Grandmasters come down. That's going to be spicy. Advance and Charge built right into their data sheet. That's going to be really interesting. But even the Terminators are cheaper. So I mean, you're going to see blobs. You're going to see 30 Terminators on the board now. So they're going to be. They're going to have the Custode. They're going to have the Custode issue basically.
Yeah, I want to see Grey Knight Terminators because that is their. That's the unit I think of when I think of Grey Knights. Are the Terminators, right?
Yes.
Like I don't want to see all these Interceptor squads.
Exactly.
It's like, no, give me 10 guys in Terminator armor with halberds that are here to stab a bloodthirster to death.
And you know, the only thing I wish that they had retained from ninth is their hammers. Everybody else retained their hammers. They did not, but it is what it is.
Everybody else. Space Wolves would like a word with you.
Exactly. Right. Imperial Knights, I think just the armatures went up. So minimal changes.
Rex, I assume, was an increase there.
I think he went down.
Did he come
slightly
down?
I'm not 100% sure. Daniel was talking about him, but not 100%. I don't think.
You know what? He might have come down slightly
because of devastating wounds.
His 0 CP thing also got worse, right? So you know, like if they took 10 points off him, hey, Dan's Votan might be
every single model. Single model.
I think he said his list. So he gets 3 more units with +1 to hit and wound now, and I think he said his list went down something like 250 or 300 points.
Yeah, he basically is going to put another. He's basically going to put another 10 Hearthguard in it. Yeah. Like it's crazy. Yeah. Necrons got away as bandits in this thing. Like yes, the Satan got a point increase. The Satan got a point increase, but pretty much everything else got point decreases.
Did the Lich Guard
other than the head? No, the Lich Guard
did not go down.
No, Lich Guard went up. 3 things I think went up: Lich Guard, the tanks, and the Satan.
Yeah, so like the core of the army went up.
Yeah, but the Warriors went down. Yeah. Warriors went down.
So these are the guys that got the Dark Eldar treatment. I don't know that it'll have the same result, but where they went, we're raising the price of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
we're gonna lower the price of some other stuff, and now maybe we'll see that on the table, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. I still think that the Warriors are a trap. They're just less of a trap. They don't kill anything. They kill nothing.
Yeah,
but have you like, come on, as a Custodes player, have you ever looked at 20 Necron Warriors and went?
Well, the problem is you just can't kill them. The problem is literally you
kill them.
Dude, I played a game where I swung into them for 3 turns and they just kept reanimating. Like it was ridiculous. Because all their characters were hidden behind a building and I couldn't precision.
Oh, you couldn't precision them yet.
So orcs also shifted. Some stuff came down, some things went up, trucks went up. So transports went up and units came down, I believe. Now, Space Marines. Redemptor Dreadnoughts, the best Dreadnought in the game by far. I mean, other than a Telemon, and it's cheaper than a Telemon because it just doesn't have an invuln. It went down in points, right? The thing is a good gun platform, can smack in combat. Aggressors went down.
That's really why Burnsy wanted aggressors.
Yes, Centurions went down.
Gary Sacco is very happy.
Yes. All of the Land Raiders, I believe, also dropped.
But I think Centurions are still like movement 4, so you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but you just bring them in. Yeah, no, I think the Land Raider, the Land Raider Redeemer is only 260 points. That thing is insane.
Yeah, all the Land Raider chassis went down.
Yeah, so then you've got, I'm glad this Vulcan Histan dropped. We'll see if any other guys drop there. I mean, I'm really curious to see how the Codex does with them. And I mean, they're probably going to be our new overlords. So we'll see.
Usually when the Space Marine Codex drops for an edition, since third edition.
Oh.
So I don't know what happened in first and second, but they are either terrible or oppressive. Like I don't think I remember a Space Marine Codex dropping and going like, oh, that was pretty middle of the road, right?
I'm glad that the two Salamander characters dropped. Magnus Calgar dropped, but then Rowboat Girly Man,
the real boss went up.
Yeah,
right.
He went up, but
the assistant to the regional manager went down, and the
and Tor Garadon. Now I know a lot of people aren't playing Imperial Fist, but Tor Garadon went down, I believe, and he's a.
Are you listening, Steve? Bring out the fists.
Pretty much. Space Wolves, I don't know, but I think they got point decreases.
Yes, they did, because I saw Patrick say that his like stream list went down. The one he had played previously on stream, I think, went down 100.
Tau got some good point decreases. Patrick is a sucker for feeling the pain on these armies, so I'm happy that his armies have gotten point decreases to make them viable.
So. I mean, one of Patrick's big problems is that he sometimes kills his battle suits at a quicker rate than his opponents do. So
I have seen it. I've seen him drop his 6-man and roll 7 hazardous ones and just pick up more than half his squad. So
it's just like
Now this is spicy because I believe Thousand Suns
went up.
Yeah, but their output is really good. Like if you play Thousand Suns right, they're true through you.
Played on played the Thousand Suns a couple of times on the boat there, and had a fantastic game. I am terrible with names, so I'd have to go. Look up my opponent's name because I'm bad. Because I can remember the Custodes players. I can remember Gab. I can't remember. That's bad. Anyways, but Thousand Suns are a fantastic army.
Yeah, Thousand Suns will be one to watch for the next little bit because they were still getting pretty good tournament results, and even though they got some increases, I don't think it was a lot. So, but Tyranids, from everything I've been hearing, they got a lot of point increases. Like the Tyrannofax have been taking out shot. But apparently, for me, the big thing that didn't get a point increase, which I thought was going to, was the Exocrine, and the Exocrine is very good. It's still 135 points. Now, I think that's because it's not as tough as some of the other monsters, but like the shooting is strength 8, like -2 flat 3 damage. It's like D6 plus 3. It's insane platform. And the big thing about it is whatever it hits, everything else in the army that shoots it gets to reroll ones.
Right.
So it's a great platform to have like 2 or 3 of them in the army, and at the cost. Like they used to be 210 points in 9th. They're 135. Like
it'll be interesting to see because there's a bunch of new models. There's the Codex with all kinds of new stuff. So
Spore Mines.
We won't know how that's
scoring. Spore Mines still score
again. And please God, until the FAQ, please.
Oh, hopefully
this always happens.
I know it always happens.
Right.
The Norn Emissary and the Norn Assimilator, man, are they pricey? They I think in the book they were like 245 or something. They went up like 40-50 points.
They went up points before,
and they haven't even come out.
Even like had the models in their hands.
Now the one thing about the Vilevors was I think they used to be like 40-50 points. They are now 75 points. I believe they did go up, but and they only launched like 1 Spore Mine or something. But again, for scoring, it's a great thing, right? So that's the big thing that people were talking about. All their enhancements changed.
Yes.
Yeah. So
which again, it's gonna be interesting to see how that whole Codex thing shakes out, because I've listened to exactly half of one podcast on this. So I
Yeah.
have no idea how any of that's going to shake out.
World Eaters, I believe, dropped.
I believe Exalted went down like 10-ish
Yeah.
model. Right?
Yeah,
Like
so that should be
they
pretty
got a pretty
spicy.
good drop.
Yeah, I don't know about the big boy himself. No, he stayed the same. And also the Lion stayed the same. Lion stayed the same. I think it was only G-Man that went up because of that double oath ability. That's just so good. So, but yeah, there is our review. I know some of the armies we didn't really touch on a whole lot. Just there's not enough time to go through every single
There's just
point.
the two of us here too, and for a lot of armies, we would just be kind of talking out of our butts because we don't play them and we don't play against them a ton. So
yeah, Nids I did play in 9th, and I'm looking at bringing them out in 10th. I don't have any of the newer models ready yet, but they do look very spicy. The play style is very interesting with them, but again, the problem with 10th right now is it's a shooting meta, so everything is a gun line, and they suffer from just everything can be just a little bit better gun line than them. So we'll see what the codex changes, and then we're on the Space Marine Codex, which is going to, I think, allow for more play styles because so they're not doing like Salamander rules, but Salamander is going to get a detachment called,
Best Friends of Humanity.
Yeah, exactly, right? And that'll be theirs, right? And Raven Guard, or all of the other Imperial Fists, they'll all get their own detachment that's going to suit their playstyle. I really want to see what they do with Sally's, because I've got my Salamander army getting ready, and I want to know what they'll do, right? So, because Flamers are a little weak, but into bigger things, right? Into chaff, not so much. They'll just shred chaff, but Eradicators are a little bit lacking, and that was sort of the Salamander go-to. So we're going to see what happens to them with Melta and Flame, and go from there. But
and as someone who owns a whole whack of sisters, I kind of want to see what they do with the Melta Flame faction in Space Marines, because maybe that means indicates something they'll do to sisters later.
Well, it was hilarious because in 9th, everybody had better Flamers than the Salamanders.
Not when the book came out, though.
Not when the book came out. So
they had the best when they came out. All right.
Awesome. All right. I think we're going to end it there. And all right, guys, please like, subscribe, all of the above, notify everything. And
buttons. Hit all of the buttons down there except for the thumbs down.
All right, guys.
All of the other buttons.
Talk to you later.